All right, this build is gonna be exciting. So we've got a few parts you probably haven't seen before. We'll introduce those to you, as well as some parts that you might have seen but haven't been able to purchase yet. I apologize, this will be a bit of a tease, but at least this will give you something to look forward to, something that you can potentially build in the future. With that out of the way, let's get started. Let's start off with a case. This is sent from a company called Montech, and Montech is actually the sponsor of this video. They wanted to show off their new mid-tower here. This is their flagship called the Sky One ARGB, and they've also got their PSU, which we'll get to in a second. But you can see the Sky One has plenty of airflow capabilities. This entire front panel pretty much is perforated, which is awesome. It is a mid-tower by definition. It has vertical mounting support for custom water blocks, things of that sort. And best of all, it's not really gonna break the bank. And this here is their 80+ gold rated Century fully modular power supply. This is an 850 watt unit, which should be enough for this system, actually more than enough. Now elsewhere, obviously, we've got the Ryzen 5 5600X, a 6-core 12-thread variant, which should perform better than something like an 8700K from Intel. Better for games, better for quite a bit because of the strong single-core performance that Zen 3 is packing. So interesting to see how far this will go. And we paired it with a B550E gaming from ASUS. Kind of makes sense to pair it with B550. I mean, this is the chipset that this chip was intended to be used with, and it looks freaking awesome, so I mean, come on. Next up, we have the Gigabyte RTX 3070 Gaming OC. We reviewed it right up here if you're interested. It runs very quiet, runs very cool, and it is very powerful for the price. So whenever you can get your hands on one, strongly consider this model here. And last up, we've got storage and RAM. So to start off with RAM, this is a 3600 megahertz 16 gig kit. These are two 8 gig DIMMs, and 3600 is kind of the sweet spot. Obviously, you could go a bit higher, something around 4000 megahertz would be optimal for the 5600X, but this really isn't gonna hurt too much in the way of performance. And these are gonna look mighty fine while they're on. And then we have the MP33 SSD. This is a Gen 3 drive, could go with Gen 4, but if you're looking to save a bit of money, Gen 3 speeds are still plenty fast. You're gonna get a 5-year warranty with this, and 1 terabyte. It's a good starting point. So we're gonna get the platform assembled first, and for that we'll need the CPU, the motherboard, and the RAM. Ooh, mama. Let me tell you, ASUS makes some mighty fine looking motherboards. A few red accents, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of those, but elsewhere, holy crapola. All right, let's get this CPU out of here. Oh yeah, she's a beauty. I know my head's probably cut off. Yep, my head is totally cut off. Oh well. Check out how sexy. Is it gonna focus on, no, please. Oh, my head's in the shot, that's why. There we go. Look how beautiful that looks. We're gonna lift that lever, drop her on in. Nice and gently now. Don't wanna hurt that brand new chip. And lower the retention arm. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking something like, Greg, that's an awful way to apply thermal paste. Yeah, get over it. And I also know what you're about to say here. When you see what cooler I'm using, you're gonna say, Greg, what the are you doing using the stock cooler? That's right, folks. The stock AMD cooler. Oh dear God, why? Why? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's all about budget allocation. Obviously, we could splurge on something like a 240mm or 360mm AIO. That's gonna cost around $100. This is included with the 5600X. Remember, this chip is only a 65 watt TDP CPU, meaning it's not gonna pull a lot of power, it's not gonna run fairly hot, and as a result, we can afford to skimp out a bit. This is gonna run, yeah, sure, a tad bit loud, but I'm willing to, accept this for the sake of saving money elsewhere or being able to spend that extra money on, say, a better graphics card. Whoops, like our 3070. So that ain't going anywhere. Let's connect that fan cable. Which one's CPU fan? I think it's kind of weird. Why is the script for that header way over here? I don't know which one it goes to. This one's obviously CPU optional. I think this one is the CPU primary header. Not that it really matters. And we'll just tuck her in like so. Next up are the T-Force Delta RGB modules from Team Group. Oh God, the glare is just awful there. We're gonna pop these open, try not to drop them. The board denotes slots B2 and A2 as the primary slots for dual channel. We're gonna start with B2 and then take care of A2. Looking good. All right, now you can see this motherboard already has an integrated rear I/O shield, which is nice. Don't need to worry about that. We're gonna use the CPU cooler as our handle of sorts. We're gonna drop the motherboard in using the middle standoff as our method of alignment. All right, motherboard screws. Oh God, oh, the bag was already open, dang it. And all right, looking pretty good so far. If you're wondering, by the way, what this is actually a graphics card sag prevention tool. It's integrated into the case. You can adjust it depending on the length of your card. But yeah, if your card's hanging a bit low, take care of it with that. By the way, while we're here, we should go ahead and install our NVMe SSD. This would be something that you don't want to forget about later, because your graphics card will completely cover. Actually, it actually won't, because it's above our PCIe slot, our 16-lane slot there. But you want to take care of this usually before doing much else. Actually, we could have taken care of this while the motherboard was out of the case. I totally forgot the standoff there, but you know what? Screw it. We're just gonna slap it back on. Just everyone close your eyes. Everyone close your eyes. Next up, we're gonna tackle, you know what? Let's just, there we go. Next up, we're gonna tackle the power supply. I like to save the graphics card for last just because that's usually the easiest thing to install. You wanna get all your wires situated and out of the way before you get one of the vital components in there. One thing I really like about this unit is that it is compact, so it is not very long, meaning it should fit in most mid-towers out there, including the Sky One. And with the cables we need connected, we're just gonna slide this in from the right side, and it'll sit just like so. And now we're gonna take care of all the wiring, and there's quite a bit of it to do. We've got some of the small stuff down here, if I can get this thing in there, and some of the fatter cables, like the 24 pin. Get in there. Let's ease it in. Yep. Nice. And now we're gonna focus on some cable management at the rear. I'm just gonna show you a quick time lapse of this. And all right, so this probably isn't my best work. We're just using the stock cables, and that's usually gonna mean you have to kind of stuff some cables on the bottom and kind of run them in unorthodox places. Anyway, I think this looks decent for what it is. And now we just gotta install the graphics card. So where is that? Aha, here it is. Don't worry. Don't worry, there's nothing in it. It's a joke. It's a joke, relax. 3070 is okay, it's right here. Okay. Yeah, it's right here. Chill. And now we can go ahead and install her, and look how good she looks in there. Hearing that click, oh, so satisfying. And the last thing on the build agenda, get the 6 and 8 pin PCIe power cables connected for this 3070. Looking good. I always like to hide this extra little 2-pin here that we're not using. Try to tuck it away. Nice. Now, we are going to test out this build. Now, typically at this point in the video, I'm like, okay, you can find these parts linked below, and happy hunting. But what's the point? If you're not gonna see how powerful the system is, what it can do, what it's capable of, how it stacks up against other builds out there, why should you feel inclined to build it? I mean, unless you're very familiar with these these parts, if you're new to PC building, this just might seem like, you know, okay, cool, he built something, but what's the point? So we're gonna, from now on, when we build systems like this, run these through 3D Mark TimeSpy. It's a 1440p DX12 synthetic benchmark, but we'll get to see where the system stacks up against the competition. Pretty much every other result in there, this will be stacked up against, and we'll get to see if it's, you know, 75% better than all results out there, maybe 90% better than all the results out there, and weigh that result against the price of the system, which we'll get to at the very end. So, on to TimeSpy it is.
Many hours later.
Well, I was hoping by the time we filmed this part of the video that we'd have all the RGB synced up, but unfortunately, the new Asus Aura RGB software is straight up garbage, and I mean that in the most sincere way possible. It is a friggin' dumpster fire. So we're gonna stick with the traditional rainbow puke RGB colors for the RAM and motherboard. Anyway, elsewhere, this system is doing very, very well. So we actually ran it through, like I said, TimeSpy, and came up with a score that is better than 94% of all results submitted. And you gotta remember, this system here, right, 94% better than all other submissions, is not using the best hardware available. I mean, an RTX 3070, yeah, it's difficult to get. We already mentioned that. The 5600X, yeah, difficult to get. We already mentioned that, but they're not the most expensive things in their classes. I mean, you have the RTX 3080 and 3090 that are better than this, and the 6800 XT from AMD. All 4 of those cards better than this one, all 3. Is that 3 cards? Yeah, 3. But for about 500 bucks, I think this is a steal, and that's not really a surprise. And then the 5600X, I mean, yeah, it holds its own, but it's only a 6-core counterpart. I mean, heck, AMD offers 16-core variants for the exact same chipset, the exact same platform. So I think that says a lot about how far technology has come, and yeah, you can really extract a ton of potential out of, I would say, mid to middle higher range hardware. Not like crazy high end. You could build this this for well under 1,500 bucks if you play your cards right. Don't pay scalper prices, be patient, and in a few months, this will be something worth considering. So again, I'd like to thank Montech for sponsoring this video, for sending over their Sky One ARGB case, which has great airflow properties with that perforated front panel. And another thing, thanks to this design, you don't have to deal with those annoying cables attached to the front panel if you need to remove it to install a front mounted radiator or something like that. These contact pins here clean things up nicely, so all you need to do to power on these front panel LEDs is connect the front panel to the chassis. You get a cutout here for your power supply, you get vertical graphics card support, you get that tempered glass left side panel, plenty of cable management space at the rear, really kind of a mesh, kind of a fusion of all of the great qualities of many other cases on the market, and I like it. For the price, I think it's a good buy. I wouldn't have partnered with them if I thought this was a crappy case. You can find all the parts we use for this build in the video description, so be sure to check those out, and let me know what you would change about this build if you had the same kind of budget to play around with. Obviously, inventory levels aside, I don't really think we could do much better. I mean, yeah, we could probably sacrifice here or there, maybe get a cheaper power supply, maybe get a slightly cheaper RAM, although that RAM is already fairly affordable. There isn't much more wiggle room in the way of like optimizing for sheer performance, and that's why I like this build. It's one of those like no nonsense, just like best bang for your buck PC builds that can handle 1440p like a true boss. Give this video a thumbs up, consider subscribing, doing whatever else I usually say, and I'll catch you in the next one. My name's Greg, thanks for building with me.